Princess Zara walked into the massive council chamber, her tiny feet making barely any sound on the polished marble floor. The room was enormous, with ceilings that stretched so high they seemed to touch the stars themselves. Giant pillars supported the dome above, and holographic displays showed maps of distant worlds spinning slowly in the air. But what made Zara feel truly small wasn't the size of the room. It was the creatures sitting around the circular table in the center. Each delegate from the various planets stood at least twice her height, some even taller. Their deep voices echoed through the chamber as they discussed matters that would decide the fate of millions. Zara clutched a small datapad in her hands. On it were detailed reports about her home planet Lumina. Her world was dying, and she had traveled across the galaxy to ask for help. As the youngest ruler in galactic history, she had hoped her people's unique abilities would be enough to earn them aid and protection. The princess found her assigned seat, which had been placed so low that she could barely see over the table's edge. She had to climb onto the chair like a child getting onto a grown-up's furniture. Round her, the other delegates barely glanced in her direction. To them, she might as well have been invisible. Ambassador Thorak, from the warrior planet Zephyria, slammed his massive fist on the table. His species looked like walking mountains, with rock-like skin and eyes that glowed red. "Why are we wasting time with this tiny creature?" he growled. "Ow!" "Her planet offers nothing we cannot take by force if needed." The representative from the water world Aquatica nodded her sleek blue head in agreement. The child should have sent a real diplomat, someone who understands how serious business is conducted in this council. Zara's heart sank. She had spent months preparing for this moment, studying diplomatic protocols and practicing her speeches. She knew every law, every rule, every precedent that might help her people. But none of that seemed to matter when everyone saw her as nothing more than a child playing dress-up. "If I may speak," Zara said, her voice barely audible in the vast chamber. She stood on her chair, hoping to be seen and heard better. The conversation around the table continued as if she hadn't spoken at all. The delegates from the mining worlds were arguing about resource allocation, while the representatives from the technology planets discussed trade agreements that would leave Lumina out completely. Zara tried again, this time speaking louder. "Honorable delegates, my people possess abilities that could benefit everyone here. Our planet can purify toxic atmospheres and restore damaged ecosystems. We've been doing this for thousands of years." A few heads turned in her direction, but the looks she received weren't encouraging. Some delegates smiled the way adults smile at children who say something amusing. Others looked annoyed that she had interrupted their important discussion. Yes, little princess," said the representative from the crystal world, Minerva, waving a dismissive hand. "We've heard about your people's gardening skills. It's very cute, but we're discussing real solutions to real problems here." The word "cute" hit Zara like a physical blow. Her people weren't gardeners. They were environmental engineers who had mastered the art of atmospheric restoration. They could take a planet choking on pollution and make it breathable again within months. They could restore dead soil and bring back extinct plant species. These weren't party tricks or cute hobbies. They were skills that could save entire civilizations. But looking around the room, Zara realized that none of these powerful beings saw her people as anything more than a curiosity. They saw her small stature and youthful appearance and made assumptions about her capabilities and her world's value. The discussion moved on to other topics. The delegates talked about military alliances and trade disputes. They discussed which planets would receive protection and which would be left to fend for themselves. Zara watched helplessly as her world's name appeared on the list of minor territories that would be considered for assistance only after all the major powers had their needs met. Hours passed, and Zara remained largely ignored. When she tried to contribute to discussions, her comments were overlooked or dismissed. When she presented data about her planet's unique abilities, the other delegates barely glanced at her reports. They were too busy making deals among themselves to pay attention to what they saw as an unimportant child. During a break in the proceedings, Zara overheard a conversation between two delegates that made her blood run cold. They were discussing the possibility of simply taking over Lumina and using its resources without bothering to negotiate with its people at all. The The population is small and technologically inferior, one of them said. We could establish a colony there within a year. Use their atmospheric purification abilities to clean up some of our industrial worlds. Good thinking, the other replied. Why negotiate when we can simply take what we need? The princess is clearly too young and inexperienced to stop us. Zara realized with growing horror that her worst fears were coming true. These beings didn't see her as a legitimate ruler or her people as equals, deserving of respect. They saw Lumina as a resource to be exploited, and her as an obstacle to be removed. The princess returned to her seat feeling more alone than ever. She was thousands of light years from home, surrounded by beings who could crush her world without a second thought. Her advisors had warned her that this might happen, but she had hoped that reason and diplomacy would prevail. As the session resumed, Zara watched the other delegates continue their discussions. They talked about her people as if they were objects rather than living beings with rights and dignity. They made plans that would strip Lumina of its independence and reduce her subjects to servants of more powerful worlds. The young princess felt tears forming in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had come too far and risked too much to give up now. Somewhere in this vast chamber filled with indifferent faces, there had to be someone who would listen. Someone who would see past her small size and recognize the value of what she and her people could offer. But as the hours ticked by and the voices around her grew louder and more dismissive, Zara began to wonder if she would ever find that someone. Her world was running out of time, and she was running out of hope. Dr. Elena Rodriguez sat in the back section of the council chamber, watching the proceedings with growing concern. As Earth's lead scientist on the diplomatic mission, she had been studying the various alien species for months. Unlike the other human delegates who focused on trade agreements and military alliances, Lena was fascinated by the different cultures and their unique abilities. She had spent weeks researching Princess Zara's planet, Lumina. What she discovered amazed her. The Luminans weren't just good at fixing damaged environments, they were masters of it. Their technology could reverse centuries of pollution damage. In just months, they could bring dead planets back to life and create sustainable ecosystems that would thrive for thousands of years. But watching the tiny princess struggle to be heard in the massive council chamber made Elena's heart ache. She could see the intelligence in Zara's eyes, the careful way she had prepared her presentations, and the genuine desperation in her voice as she tried to save her people. Yet the other delegates treated her like a child who had wandered into an adult meeting by mistake. Elena leaned forward in her seat as Ambassador Thorak's booming voice filled the chamber once again. The matter is simple, he declared, his rocky fist pounding the table. Lumina's resources are too valuable to leave in the hands of such a small population. We should establish a protective occupation to ensure these abilities are used for the greater good of the galaxy. The princess shot to her feet, her tiny frame trembling with emotion. You cannot simply take over our world. We are a sovereign people with rights under galactic law. Several delegates laughed at her outburst, the representative from the ice. World Glacius chuckled coldly. Child, you speak of rights, but rights must be backed by strength. What strength does your tiny world possess? Lena watched as Zara's face flushed with a mixture of anger and despair. The princess had prepared legal arguments, environmental data, and detailed proposals for cooperation. But none of it mattered to beings who only respected size and military power. The Luminans have kept detailed records of atmospheric restoration. For over 3,000 years, Zara said, her voice shaking but determined. We have techniques that could save the dying worlds of Zarian and Dastara. Could help restore the ocean levels on Aquatica after the mining disasters. We offer partnership, not servitude. The delegate from Zarian, a tall being with skin like tree bark, seemed interested for a moment. But before he could respond, Ambassador Thorak cut him off. Enough of this nonsense. We'll vote on the occupation proposal within the hour. All in favor of establishing a protective colony on Lumina. Lena felt something snap inside her as she watched hands and appendages rise around the chamber. These beings were about to vote to take over an entire world based on nothing more than greed and prejudice. They saw Zara's small size and assumed her people were weak and unworthy of respect. Before she could stop herself, Elena stood up. Her voice rang out clear and strong across the chamber. I object to this proceeding under Article 47 of the Galactic Constitution. The chamber fell silent. Hundreds of alien eyes turned toward the human section where Alina stood. She could feel her own delegation's shocked stares, but she didn't care. Someone had to speak up for what was right. Ambassador Thorax's red eyes glowed with anger. The human has no standing in this matter. Earth joined the galactic community. Only recently, do not have the authority to invoke constitutional procedures. Alina walked down the steps toward the main floor, her heart pounding but her voice steady. According to the membership agreements, any galactic citizen can invoke constitutional protections when they witness violations of sovereign rights. I am invoking those protections on behalf of Princess Zara and the people of Lumina. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted in dozens of different languages, their voices creating a cacophony of outrage and confusion. Alina's right to speak, while others demanded she be removed from the chamber immediately. Through it all, Alina kept her eyes on Princess Zara. The tiny alien's face showed a mixture of shock, hope, and gratitude. For the first time since the session began, someone was treating her as an equal rather than a child. The council's legal advisor, a thin being with multiple arms and ancient eyes, consulted a massive holographic law book. After several tense minutes, he announced his decision. The human's invocation is technically valid. She has the right to present her case under constitutional law. Alina took a deep breath and moved to the center of the chamber. She had studied xenobiology, not law, but she knew she had to try. Honorable delegates, you're about to make a decision based on assumptions rather than facts. You see Princess Zara's size and assume her people are weak. You see her youth and assume she lacks wisdom. But you're wrong on both counts. She activated her own datapad and projected images of Lumina's achievements into the air above the council table. The Luminans have maintained perfect ecological balance for millennia. They've never had a single environmental disaster. They've never poisoned their air or water. They've never driven a species to extinction. Can any of your worlds claim the same? Some delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Alina pressed on, her confidence growing. You talk about strength, but what's stronger than the ability to heal worlds? You talk about value, but what's more valuable than the knowledge to restore damaged ecosystems? Princess Zara isn't here because her people are weak. She's here because they're so advanced that they don't need to conquer others to survive. The chamber was quieter now, with delegates actually listening to what Alina had to say. She could see Princess Zara watching her with amazement, as if she couldn't believe someone was finally defending her people. I've spent months studying Lumina's culture and capabilities, Alina continued. They don't have massive armies because they've never needed them. They don't have weapons of mass destruction because they've never wanted them. They focus their entire civilization on creation rather than destruction. To punish them for that peaceful approach, Ambassador Thorax stood up, his massive form casting a shadow over Alina. Pretty words, human, but words don't change the facts. Lumina's resources are too important to leave unguarded. What if hostile forces attack their world? What if they refuse to share their abilities when the galaxy needs them most? Alina looked up at the towering warrior without flinching. Then ask them to be partners instead of making them slaves. Offer them protection in exchange for cooperation. Treat them as equals, deserving of respect rather than children who need to be managed. She turned to address the entire chamber. You're all so focused on what you can take from Lumina that you're missing what they're offering to give. Princess Zara came here seeking partnership, not conquest. She's offering to help heal your damaged worlds voluntarily. But if you vote to occupy her planet, you'll turn willing allies into resentful prisoners. The chamber was completely silent now. Lena could feel the weight of hundreds of alien stares, but she kept her focus on the task at hand. I ask this. Council to postpone the vote and give Princess Zara the chance to present her proposals properly. Judge her people by their actions and abilities, not by their size or appearance. Give diplomacy a chance before resorting to force. Princess Zara stepped forward, her small voice carrying clearly in the hushed chamber. Dr. Rodriguez speaks. The truth. My people want to help, not because we're forced to, but because it's the right thing to do. We've always believed that the galaxy is strongest when all worlds work together freely. Alina felt a surge of hope as she saw some delegates nodding thoughtfully. Her intervention had created an opening, a chance for Princess Zara to be heard, as an equal rather than dismissed as a child. Whether that chance would be enough remained to be seen, but at least now the tiny princess wasn't standing alone. After the dramatic confrontation in the council chamber, Lena found herself walking through the station's garden section with Princess Zara. The artificial environment was designed to make visiting delegates feel more comfortable. Holographic skies and synthetic grass that felt almost real under their feet. "I still can't believe you stood up for me like that," Zara said, her voice filled with wonder. "No one has ever challenged the council on my behalf before. Most beings just see my size and assume I'm not worth defending." Alina smiled down at the tiny princess. "Where I come from, we have a saying. Good things come in small packages. Your size doesn't define your worth. And anyone who thinks it does is missing out on something incredible." They sat on a bench designed for medium-sized species, which meant Zara had to climb up onto it while Alina could sit normally. The height difference was almost comical, but neither of them seemed to care anymore. "Tell me about your world," Alina said. "Not the technical reports or diplomatic summaries. Tell me what it's really like to live on Lumina." Zara's eyes lit up with genuine joy for the first time since Alina had met her. "Oh, Dr. Rodriguez, it's beautiful beyond words. Our cities grow rather than being built. We shape living coral into homes and offices that breathe with the planet itself. Our streets are made of moss that glows softly at night, and our buildings are covered in flowering vines that change color with the seasons." Alina listened with fascination as Zara described a world where technology and nature work together. "Perfectly. We don't have factories that pollute," the princess explained. "Instead, we have living machines, specially bred organisms that can transform raw materials into whatever we need. When we need metal, we ask the crystal worms to help us. When we need energy, we work with the light fish that swim in our upper atmosphere." "It sounds like paradise," Alina said. "But how do you handle conflicts?" "Every civilization has disagreements and problems." Zara nodded thoughtfully. "We do have conflicts, but we solve them differently than most worlds. Instead of fighting, we have what we call harmony circles. When people disagree, they sit together and share their feelings until they find a solution that works for everyone. It takes longer than just imposing someone's will, but the results last much longer too." Alina found herself more impressed with every story Zara told. This wasn't just a technologically advanced civilization. It was a society that had figured out how to live in peace with itself and its environment. No wonder the other delegates felt threatened by them. "The problem is," Zara continued, her voice growing sad, "our peaceful approach makes us seem weak to warrior cultures. They think. Because we don't have massive armies or weapons of destruction, we're easy targets. They don't understand that our strength comes from working together, not from conquering others." Over the next few days, Alina and Zara spent hours together, sharing stories and ideas. Alina learned that Zara wasn't just a figurehead princess. She was a brilliant scientist and diplomat who had been preparing for leadership her entire life. The young ruler had studied the cultures of dozens of worlds and spoke 17 different galactic languages fluently. "I've been watching the council proceedings for years," Zara explained as they walked through the station's market district. "I know every delegate's background, their world's needs, and their political motivations. But knowing all that doesn't help if they won't listen to me." Alina had an idea. "What if we approach the smaller worlds first, or the ones that get overlooked? Just like Lumina does? If we can show them how your people's abilities could help their specific problems, maybe we can build a coalition of support." They started with the delegate from Verdania, an agricultural world struggling with soil depletion. Zara presented a detailed plan for restoring their farmland using Lumina's biorestoration techniques. The Verdanian representative, a plant-like being named Thornwick, was amazed by the princess's knowledge of soil chemistry and ecosystem balance. "Your people could really do this?" Thornwick asked, his leafy appendages rustling with excitement. "You could bring our dead fields back to life?" "Not just bring them back," Zara replied confidently. "We could make them more fertile than they've ever been, and we could teach your people how to maintain that fertility for generations to come." Word of their success with Verdania spread quickly through the station's informal communication networks. Soon, delegates from other smaller worlds were requesting private meetings with Princess Zara. Alina watched with pride as the young ruler transformed before her eyes, gaining confidence with each successful presentation. The delegate from the desert world Eurytus was struggling with water shortage. Zara showed him how her people could help design atmospheric processors that would extract moisture from the air without damaging the planet's delicate ecosystem. The representative from the mining world Excavore was dealing with toxic waste that was poisoning his people. Zara presented a solution using specially engineered bacteria that could break down the pollutants and actually improve the soil in the process. But their growing success didn't go unnoticed by the major powers. Ambassador Thorak confronted Alina in the station's main corridor, his massive form blocking her path. "You're making a mistake, human," he growled. "These smaller worlds are getting ideas above their station. They're starting to think they can challenge the established order." Alina looked up at the towering warrior without fear. Maybe the established order needs to be challenged. Maybe it's time for the galaxy to be run by cooperation instead of intimidation. Thorak's red eyes flared with anger. "You have no idea what forces you're messing with. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and only the strong survive. Your little princess and her peaceful world will be crushed by the first real threat they face." "Or maybe," Alina replied calmly, "they'll turn that threat into an ally. That's what peaceful people do. They find ways to solve problems without violence." The confrontation attracted attention from other delegates, and soon rumors were spreading throughout the station. Some said the humans were trying to overthrow the galactic government. Others claimed Princess Zara was building a secret army. The truth was much simpler. They were just trying to give smaller worlds a voice in their own future. Lena found herself facing pressure from her own delegation as well. The Earth ambassador, a stern woman named Commander Hayes, called her into a private meeting. "Dr. Rodriguez, your actions are causing diplomatic incidents," Hayes said firmly. "Earth is still a new member of the galactic community. We can't afford to make enemies of the major powers." "But we can't afford to ignore injustice either," Alina replied. "Princess Zara and her people are offering solutions to problems that have plagued the galaxy for centuries. If we help them succeed, everyone benefits." Hayes shook her head. "Politics isn't about what's right, Doctor. It's about what's possible. And right now, supporting a tiny princess against the established powers isn't possible." Alina felt a surge of frustration. Even her own people were telling her to abandon Princess Zara when things got difficult. But looking at the young ruler's determination and the hope in the eyes of the smaller world's delegates, she knew she couldn't give up. Sometimes, Alina said quietly, the impossible becomes possible when good people decide to work together. As the days passed, Alina and Zara's coalition continued to grow. They held secret meetings in the station's quieter sections, sharing ideas and building trust among worlds that had never worked together before. The princess's natural diplomacy and Elena's scientific credibility made them an effective team. But they both knew that their real test was still coming. The major powers wouldn't tolerate their growing influence forever. Soon they would have to face a challenge that would determine not just the fate of Lumina, but the future of galactic cooperation itself. The emergency alarm rang through the space station at exactly 3:47 in the morning, Galactic Standard Time. Alina jolted awake in her quarters, her heart racing as the red warning lights flashed across her walls. Emergency announcements echoed through the corridors in multiple languages, all delivering the same terrifying message: the planet Corvex was dying. She rushed to the emergency council session, where delegates were gathering in confusion and panic. The massive viewing screen showed live images of Corvex, one of the galaxy's most important industrial worlds. The planet's atmosphere was turning a sickly yellow-green color, and reports were flooding in of massive environmental collapse. "The situation is critical," announced the council's emergency coordinator, a tall being with silver skin and multiple eyes. "Corvex's industrial facilities have suffered a chain reaction failure. Toxic gases are spreading through the atmosphere at an alarming rate. The planet has maybe 72 hours before it becomes completely uninhabitable." Alina spotted Princess Zara in the crowd, looking as concerned as everyone else. The tiny princess was studying the data streams on her personal device, her brow furrowed in concentration. Even from across the room, Alina could see the wheels turning in Zara's brilliant mind. Ambassador Thorax stood up, his massive form commanding attention. "This is exactly why the strong must lead," he declared. "Corvex needs immediate evacuation. My fleet can begin moving the population to temporary shelter worlds within 48 hours. Evacuation?" The delegate from Corvex, a blue-skinned humanoid, named Celine, looked horrified. "That's our home? Our entire civilization is built on that planet. Can't just abandon everything we've worked for." "Sometimes abandonment is the only option," replied the representative from Glacius coldly. "Better to lose a world than lose a population." Alina watched as the delegates fell into their usual pattern of thinking. The major powers immediately jumped to solutions involving force, movement, and abandonment. No one was talking about actually fixing the problem. They were just discussing how to manage the disaster. But Princess Zara was different. She was still analyzing the data, her small fingers flying across her device as she pulled up atmospheric readings and chemical analysis. Alina could see the determination growing in the princess's eyes. "Wait," Zara said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I need to see the complete atmospheric breakdown data from Corvex." Several delegates turned to look at her, some with annoyance and others with surprise. Ambassador Thorax scowled. "Little princess, this is not the time for your environmental games. Real beings are dying." "That's exactly why this is the time," Zara replied firmly. She stood on her chair to be better seen and heard. "Celine, can you transmit the complete chemical analysis of the toxic gases to my workstation?" The Corvex delegate looked uncertain. "Princess, I appreciate your concern, but our top scientists have already determined that the damage is irreversible. The chain reaction created compounds that will remain toxic for thousands of years." "Your scientists are thinking like engineers," Zara said, her confidence growing. "They're trying to contain the damage and minimize the spread. But I'm thinking like a healer. Instead of stopping the poison, what if we could neutralize it?" Lena felt a surge of excitement. She had studied enough of Lumina's capabilities to know that Zara wasn't just making empty promises.
Active.
The princess actually had ideas that could work. The readings show a combination of sulfur compounds and industrial metals suspended in the atmosphere. Zara continued, her voice growing stronger. "My people have dealt with similar contamination before. They have organisms that can break down these specific toxins and convert them into harmless gases." The chamber fell silent. Alina could see delegates looking at each other with uncertainty. This tiny princess was proposing something none of their advanced civilizations had considered possible. "Even if such organisms exist," said the representative from Minerva skeptically, "how could you deploy them quickly enough? Planet only has 72 hours. Zara's eyes lit up. "That's the beauty of biological solutions. They reproduce and spread naturally. We wouldn't need to cover the entire planet manually. We just need to introduce the organisms at key points in the atmosphere. Let them do what they do best, multiply and spread." Alina stood up from her seat. "The princess is right. I've studied Lumina's bioremediation techniques. They've successfully cleaned up atmospheric disasters before. They did it faster than any mechanical solution could have managed." Ambassador Thorax slammed his fist on the table. "This is madness. You're talking about releasing unknown organisms into a planet's atmosphere? What if these creatures don't stop with the toxins? What if they start breaking down the breathable air as well?" Zara said calmly. "We've been doing this for 3,000 years. Our organisms are designed to be self-limiting. They consume only specific compounds and then naturally die off when their food source is exhausted. It's not guesswork, it's proven science." The delegate from Corvex, Celine, looked at Princess Zara with desperate hope. "You really think you can save our world?" "I don't think I can," Zara replied. I know I can, but I'll need help. My people can provide the organisms and the expertise, but we'll need transportation and support from the galactic community." Alina felt her heart racing with excitement. This was Zara's moment, the chance to prove that her people's peaceful approach could solve problems that military might and industrial power couldn't touch. "I'll coordinate the logistics," Alina offered. Earth's scientific vessels can transport the organisms and provide technical support. Other delegates began to speak up. Thornwick from Verdania offered his agricultural ships to help with the biological deployment. The representative from Aritis promised atmospheric monitoring equipment. Even some of the neutral worlds that had stayed out of previous discussions began offering assistance. But the major powers weren't pleased. "You're all making a terrible mistake," growled Ambassador Throck. "When this experiment fails, and it will fail, you'll have wasted precious time that could have been used for proper evacuation." "And what if it succeeds?" Alina asked boldly. "What if Princess Zara saves an entire world while you were planning to abandon it?" The next 48 hours were a blur of activity. Alina worked closely with Zara to coordinate the largest biological rescue operation in galactic history. The princess's people worked around the clock to prepare specially engineered organisms for Corvex's specific atmospheric conditions. Alina was amazed by the Luminan technology. The organisms looked like tiny, glowing jellyfish that could float through the atmosphere, consuming toxic compounds and releasing harmless gases. They were beautiful and elegant, nothing like the mechanical solutions most civilizations would have used. "Each organism is programmed to live for exactly 30 hours, Zara explained, as they watched the deployment begin. "They'll consume the toxins, reproduce once to ensure coverage, and then naturally expire. Within 72 hours, both the poison and the organisms will be gone." Alina watched the viewing screens as the glowing organisms spread through Corvex's atmosphere. It was like watching stars being born as the tiny creatures multiplied and spread, their gentle light pushing back against the sickly yellow-green clouds. The transformation was remarkable. Hour by hour, the toxic gases began to clear. The yellow-green clouds faded to normal atmospheric colors. Air quality readings improved dramatically. By the end of the second day, Corvex's atmosphere was not only clean, but actually purer than it had been before the disaster. The chamber erupted in cheers when the final report came in. Corvex was not only saved, but better than ever. The princess's organisms had consumed all the toxins, and even cleaned up older pollutants that had been building up for decades. Alina looked at Princess Zara, who was surrounded by delegates congratulating her on the miracle she had performed. The tiny princess was glowing with pride and joy. But Alina could see something else in her eyes, a new confidence that hadn't been there before. "You did it," Alina said when she finally reached Zara through the crowd. "You actually saved an entire world." "We did it," Zara replied, her voice warm with gratitude. "I couldn't have done this without your support and the help of all these wonderful beings." Alina realized that something fundamental had changed in that moment. Princess Zara was no longer the ignored child sitting alone at the council table. She was now a leader who had proven herself capable of achieving the impossible, and the galaxy was finally beginning to see her for who she truly was. 3 months after the Corvex rescue, the Galactic Council chambers looked completely different. Where once there had been a rigid hierarchy with the major powers dominating every conversation, now there was something new, actual cooperation between worlds that had never worked together before. Alina stood at the back of the chamber, watching Princess Zara address the full council. The tiny princess no longer needed to climb on her chair to be seen. A special platform had been built for her, not because she demanded it, but because the other delegates wanted to make sure they could see and hear her clearly. "The success on Corvex was just the beginning," Zara was saying, her voice carrying confidence that had been missing months ago. "Today, I'm proposing the formation of the Cooperative Alliance, a new partnership between worlds that believe in helping each other rather than conquering each other." The chamber buzzed with excitement. Representatives from dozens of smaller worlds leaned forward in their seats, eager to hear more. Even some delegates from the major powers were listening intently, though Alina could see the resistance in their body language. "The alliance would work differently than traditional galactic politics," Zara continued. "Instead of the strong dominating the weak, we would share our unique abilities to solve problems together. Each world would contribute what they do best, and everyone would benefit from the combined knowledge and resources." Alina felt proud as she watched her friend present the proposal they had worked on together for weeks. The alliance wasn't just Zara's idea, it was the result of countless Conversations with representatives from worlds that had been ignored for too long. Thornwick from Verdania stood up, his leafy appendages rustling with enthusiasm. Verdania formally requests to join this alliance. Princess Zara's people have already helped us restore our farmlands beyond anything we thought possible. We want to be part of this new way of doing things. Aridas joins as well, announced the Desert World's representative. The atmospheric processors designed by Lumina have given us more water than we've had in centuries. It's time for a change in how the galaxy operates. One by one, delegates from smaller worlds stood up to announce their support. The ice world of Crystallia, the forest world of Greenspan, the ocean world of Deep Blue. All of them wanted to be part of Zara's vision for cooperative governance. But not everyone was happy with these developments. Ambassador Thorak rose to his feet, his massive form casting a shadow across the chamber. "This is exactly what I warned you about," he growled. "Small worlds are banding together to challenge the natural order. This alliance is nothing but a rebellion against legitimate authority." "What makes your authority legitimate?" Alina found herself asking as she walked down to the main floor. "Is it your size, your weapons, your willingness to use force against peaceful worlds?" The chamber fell silent as Alina and Thorak faced each other in the center of the room. The human scientist looked tiny next to the massive warrior, but her voice carried across the chamber with complete confidence. "The old way of doing things has failed," Alina continued. "For centuries, the major powers have competed with each other while the smaller worlds suffered. Planets have been strip-mined. Atmospheres have been poisoned, and entire civilizations have been destroyed. Meanwhile, worlds like Lumina have been ignored despite having solutions to these problems." "Solutions?" Thorak scoffed. "One lucky success on Corvex doesn't prove anything. What happens when the Alliance faces a real threat? Hostile forces attack. Your peaceful cooperation won't stop laser cannons or military fleets." Princess Zara stepped forward, her small form somehow commanding attention, despite being dwarfed by the two larger beings. "Ambassador Thorak, you're still thinking like a warrior. You see threats everywhere because you've been taught that the universe is a battlefield. But what if it doesn't have to be?" She gestured to the viewing screens around the chamber, which showed images of the Alliance worlds working together. "Look at what we've accomplished in just 3 months. Verdania is feeding refugee populations from 3 different worlds. Radis is sharing water purification technology with drought-stricken planets. Crystallia is providing cooling systems for overheated industrial worlds. This isn't weakness, it's strength through cooperation." The delegate from Corvex Sillin stood, up with tears in his eyes. 3 months ago, my world was dying. The major powers wanted to evacuate us and abandon our home. But Princess Zara and her alliance partners saved us, not through force or conquest, but through knowledge and cooperation. How can anyone call that weakness? Lena watched as more delegates began to speak up in support of the alliance. She could see the tide turning as even some neutral worlds began to consider joining. The old system of domination was being challenged by something new, a system based on mutual respect and shared benefit. But the major powers weren't ready to give up their control. The representative from Glacius stood up, her ice-blue skin glowing with anger. "You're all making a mistake. The galaxy is a dangerous place. Without strong leadership from the major powers, chaos will follow. Your alliance will collapse the moment it faces real adversity. Then let's put it to the test," came an unexpected voice from the back of the chamber. Everyone turned to see Commander Hayes, Alina's superior from the Earth delegation, walking toward the center of the room. Alina was shocked. Hayes had been opposing her support for Princess Zara for months. Why was she speaking up now? "Earth has been watching the Alliance's progress," Hayes announced. "We've seen how they solved the Corvex crisis, helped restore Verdania's agriculture, and provided water to Aridas. We've also seen how they've done all this without military force, without conquest, and without exploiting weaker worlds." Paused, looking directly at Alina with something that might have been respect. "Earth hereby formally requests to join the Cooperative Alliance. We believe that cooperation is stronger than competition, and that diversity of thought and ability makes us all stronger." The chamber erupted in chaos. Earth wasn't a small, overlooked world, it was a rising power with significant military and technological capabilities. If Earth joined the alliance, it would legitimize the new organization in ways that the major powers couldn't ignore. Elena felt her heart racing as she realized what was happening. The alliance was no longer just an idea or a hope. It was becoming a real political force that could reshape galactic civilization. Over the following weeks, the alliance grew rapidly. New worlds joined almost daily, each bringing their unique abilities and perspectives to the growing partnership. The Luminans provided environmental restoration technology. The Verdanians shared agricultural innovations. Iridians contributed water management systems. Earth offered scientific research and diplomatic experience. Alina found herself appointed as the Alliance's first human Lumina cultural exchange coordinator, a fancy title that basically meant she would continue working closely with Princess Zara to help different worlds understand each other better. "Can you believe how far we've come?" Zara asked during one of their regular walks through the station's garden section. 6 months ago, I was an ignored princess that no one would listen to. Now I'm helping to lead an alliance of dozens of worlds. "You were always a leader," Alina replied. "You just needed the right opportunity to show it. And maybe you needed someone to believe in you first." Zara smiled, her crystalline skin shimmering with happiness. "I've learned something important. Through all this, being small doesn't make you weak, and being peaceful doesn't make you helpless. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from bringing others together instead of standing alone." Alina nodded, watching as delegates from Alliance worlds worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. The garden around them was itself a symbol of their success, plants from dozens of different worlds growing together in harmony, each contributing to a beautiful whole that was greater than the sum of its parts. The major powers still held significant influence in the galaxy, but they could no longer ignore the Alliance or dismiss its members as unimportant. The old system of domination was slowly giving way to something new, a system where size and military might mattered less than wisdom, cooperation, and the willingness to help others. As Alina watched Princess Zara interact with delegates from countless worlds, she realized that the tiny princess had done something remarkable. She had proven that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't conquest or domination. It was the simple act of choosing to see the value in others and help them achieve their potential. The young princess who had once been ignored was now surrounded by friends and allies from across the galaxy, and perhaps most importantly, she had inspired others to believe that a better way of doing things was possible. The Alliance was just the beginning of something that would change the poor galaxy forever.